Well, as we know that Khyber Pakhtunkhwa has a border with Afghanistan, and it's a hostile government there. The Afghan Taliban have been hostile to Pakistan. Ironically, it was Pakistan that really helped them, come into power in many ways. And the Haqqanis were given refuge here in Pakistan for many, many years. And many of the members of the cabinet of the Taliban were schooled here in Pakistan. However, it's a hostile government in Afghanistan. And there have been reprisal attacks in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, especially in the tribal belt. There have been focused operations in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, but it seems that the military wants to continue not just with the operations, but also with action in aid of civil power and with internment centers. Now, action in aid of civil power allows and gives the military a lot of powers. It gives the military undue powers, the right to arrest anybody without a charge, without even a reasonable suspicion, and keep that person in internment centers where there's no accountability for however long they want. There have been reports with the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan has documented that some of the people in these internment centers have come out dead. And so these are very alarming reports which have not been addressed. And that is the reason that whoever is in power in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa would ask for the annulment of the internment centers and also for scrapping off the action in aid of civil power. But it seems that the military wants to continue with that. That remains a bone of contention between the federal government and the provincial government. Ironically, it was actually the provincial government, the government of Imran Khan, when he was in favor with the military, that actually imposed action in aid of civil power regulation ordinance onto the whole of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. But now that they have fallen out of favor, they want that to be rescinded. Well, what's the point of having a governor rule in Balochistan? They say that you don't rob an empty house. There's already the military controlling Balochistan completely. The provincial assembly over there remains a rubber stamp. That remains the one of the big criticisms of the Balochistan government by the people of Balochistan. And the chief minister doesn't seem to enjoy any popularity. In fact, he's extremely unpopular in Balochistan. So what is the point of having governor rule when you can control anything anyway, with or without the parliament there and with the consent of the provincial assembly over there? Now, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, there is an elected provincial assembly which does not see eye to eye with the federal government. And I think, therefore, there is a problem. Now, when you talk about military operations, there has been a very bitter experience of military operations in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and also in Balochistan. Military operations have not really led to any cessation of violence. In fact, it has led to an upsurge of violence in both these provinces, and it has only worsened the political situation in both these provinces, especially in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. We've had many military operations in the past, but what we have seen is that people are usually forced out of their homes. When they go back to their homes months and years later, they find them destroyed. There's no money given to them to rebuild their homes, and they become like IDPs, internally displaced people. So that's why people are reluctant to go for military operations. And one of the most disappointing factors of these military operations has been that after the APS tragedy, the military courts were created in order to try the terrorists. So at the time, General Faiz had an underhand deal with the militants, and he released jet black terrorists, as they call them, over 100 of them, gave them their money back, gave them arms. And these were the same people who were accused of killing hundreds of children, dozens of children in the APS tragedy. So at the time, the parents of the children who were killed in the APS tragedy said, where do we find the blood of our children? On whose hands do we find the blood of our children? Who was responsible for the murder of our children? Was nobody responsible for the murder of our children? Who were the people who were tried in the military courts, and who were the people who were released? So there was absolutely no accountability, and the military courts were created precisely for accountability and for speedy trials, which never happened Instead, what we saw was that people were brought into the military court. Some of them were PTM activists, some of them were nationalists. They were given death sentences merely on confessions, which is a blatant violation of the rule of law and due process. And that those cases, those death sentences were overturned by the Peshawar High Court by Justice Waqar Seth. And then that whole case went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, which talks about the rule of law, etc., it has been 5 or 6 years since 2019, I suppose, that they have been sitting on those cases. So the situation in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is this: that it is a province which has voted in a party which is called the Instaff Party, the Party for Justice, but has not really gotten justice. They continue to be subjugated in the sense that there is a law which allows the security forces to pick up anyone, and literally anyone, without any credible evidence, without any charge, without any strong suspicion, and keep them for however long they want. This is a blatant violation of the fundamental rights of the people of the province. Well, I mean, I think that the question of whether they want to control the TTP or not is a very important question. Simply because in the past, they have had deals with Hafiz Gul Bahadur, they have had deals with Mangal Bagh, they've had deals with all the offshoots of the TTP. Whether they want to control the TTP or whether they want an end to the TTP is something that we will have to wait and see, because the government policy has not been consistent, never has been consistent in the past. And if they do want the TTP, to be crushed, or they do want elimination of the TTP. In that sense, there should be more democracy, not less democracy in those areas. Why do you need a governor's rule in those areas? You need local people, you need local jirgas, you need local communities to come together, who have come together in the past. And they've had Aman Pasoons in various parts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa asking for peace, saying that we are not with the Taliban. So the people are there with you, and they want to fight against the Taliban with you. So it's not an unpopular move over there to fight the TTP. It's a very, very popular move. So it's important to take those people into confidence. But from what I understand, that after the 18th Amendment, it has become very difficult to impose governor rule. For that, you will need a consent from the provincial government, that is the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa government, which is unlikely to give that consent. But there are provisions within the constitution which can be justified and said that there is an emergency and there is a security emergency, and therefore we are imposing governor rule. That would be a very unpopular move. And even if they do that, there's a certain stipulated time, I think it's 180 days, if I'm not wrong, and they can suspend the provincial assembly. They can't really dissolve the provincial assembly. And after that, it'll come alive again. So, I mean, what are they going to do in 180 days that they haven't done before? So even with Ali Amin Gandapur, the military operations were going on. And even with this chief minister, military operations are going on. So what other military operations are they talking about? Are they talking about carpet bombing? Of course not, because these are places where there are civilians living there. So they're not going to do that. They're still going to do IBOs, which is intelligence-based operations, which are anyway being carried out. So it seems to me that the attempt to impose governor rule is malified. It is a way to scare the present leadership of the PTI into not protesting outside of the Adiala jail, and in order to fall into line and not to lift the action in aid of civil power regulation and dissolve the internment centers, because it is in these internment centers that all these activists, etc., are brought. And there are grave human rights abuses in these internment centers. So it's a way to stop them from doing that. I think I've answered some of that question, but I think the military does have, it is the military that wants governor rule. I think it's the military that is calling the shots. It's the military that is making the deals. And especially when it comes to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, this seems to be an area where there seems to be a understanding that it is the military that is going to govern the two smaller provinces like Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan. In Balochistan, it's completely hands-off. Recently, as we have seen, it's an open secret that at the moment the current chief minister his allegiances lie not with the Pakistan People's Party, but with the military. And he toes the line of the military. So yes, he will pass certain laws that are pro-PPP, like raising the age of marriageable age of women to 18. But when it comes to other issues like Marang Baloch, burning issues of Balochistan, he will side with the military. It's the FC and the corps commanders who directly govern Balochistan. And it's very clear that the elected leadership really has no say in this matter, whether it comes to mines and minerals, whether it comes to law and order, whether it comes to, at the moment in Balochistan, there's a complete shutdown of internet. There's hardly any internet. They feel privileged when they do get internet. So these are, let's say, the backwaters of Pakistan. That's how they treated them, the people of these two provinces, like the backwaters. And it's very sad, because even as a rights activist, when I did go to do a fact finding in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, young people came to me and they said, "Do our lives not matter to you? Does our blood have no actual cost or value? We are killed every day. We are picked up every day. Where is the state? Where are the human rights activists?" And this is what is happening also in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, where it seemed like with Ali Amin Gandapur, there was a power sharing agreement. There was some areas which were considered to be completely, governed by the military. For example, security. Don't forget that Article 245 has been imposed in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa for a very long time, which means that the military has come in aid of civil power. And when they do come in aid of civil power, if you remember, there was an incident in Tira where they were bombarded, and there was a family that was bombarded. 12 children were killed. I asked the chief minister at the time, Ali Amin Gandapur, on the record, asking him, did you know about this? Did you know that they were going to bomb Tira? And his answer was, "Ki humse kab puchte hain? Hamare se kab puchte hain?" So it was very clear. And although he was justifying the bombardment by the military, so it's very clear to me that it is the military that calls the shots, especially when it comes to law and order in these provinces. Yes, the politician try to fight back in some ways or the other when it really does suit them, but when the military wants to have its way, they have their way. See, there's an incumbency factor in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa with the PTI. Their performance hasn't been great. And now they were on a trajectory where people had started to say that, they cannot protect us. They still have action in aid of civil power, although they want justice for themselves. But what about us? We are being picked up without any arrest, without any warrants. Our children are being kept in internment centers. We do not know whether they see the sun there or whether they're in solitary confinement, and they're worried about Imran Khan. So all of these things were being said in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa when I last went. But at the same time, there seems to be no other alternative. There was an election, if you remember, there was a bar election in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and the ANP did very well. So there seem to be somewhat pockets where, especially the intelligentsia, the educated middle class, was voting for the ANP yet again. But at the same time, now that if they do impose governor rule, they will again make PTI very popular. Something that they perhaps don't want to do, but inadvertently they always make those popular who they want to destroy. That has been the dilemma of the Pakistan military for a very, very long time. And they're going to do just about that. When they do impose governor rule, they will successfully paint the PTI as a victim, and therefore PTI will redeem themselves in front of the eyes of the people. When they deny meetings with Imran Khan, I think it's very clear that the politicians are very uncomfortable about this situation, but they do have to protect and justify the moves by the military. Imran Khan is a prisoner of the military. He's not a prisoner of the current government, and therefore, what happens to him, even Imran Khan and his party know it's the military to blame, and therefore they address the military and not the current politicians. They have also weakened themselves in doing so by not engaging with political parties, by not strengthening themselves in engaging with political parties. But they have been very clear that it is the military that is responsible for what is happening to them, whether them being in jail, whether them being victimized, whether them being shot at on November 28th, or whether the trials of 9th May. So what does the military hope to achieve? As usual, I cannot understand what the military hopes to achieve, because they kept saying that one of the things that they wanted to achieve was to discourage Imran Khan from having any political conversation with those who come to meet him. But inadvertently, what has happened is that Imran Khan has become international news. Now, everybody is talking about whether Imran Khan is safe or Imran Khan is not safe. And everybody is talking about whether the Pakistan government is meting out a fair treatment. And it's very obvious that they are not. And they have drawn attention to Imran Khan and to his plight in prison. And it's also a very sad reflection, and gives us a glimpse into what a regular life of a regular prisoner may be in Pakistan. It's a very sad reflection of that if a former prime minister can be treated in this way, just imagine what they do to regular prisoners. So, as usual, the military moves have always been counterproductive, and they have brought more harm to themselves than anybody else ever could.